welcome to the Ignite Your Soul Purpose online retreat. I'm Liorah, your host of the event, and today our speaker is Kelly Smith. Hello, Kelly.
Hi, how are you doing?
Doing great, and thank you for participating in the event and sharing wisdom. Really excited about our conversation to come.
Oh, me too.
Thank you. And so Kelly is a global yoga and meditation teacher, ERYT 500, founder of Yoga for You, and the host of the iTunes chart-topping podcast, Mindful in Minutes, and Yoga for You. Kelly believes that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to yoga and meditation, as we all know, and she encourages her students to find their own personal practice, which is what we're going to talk about today. But also for you to listen to your body, find your inner joy, and access your most authentic selves. Kelly is best known for her guided meditation, Yoga Nidra, and also restorative yoga practices that she's been sharing since 2016. So in today's conversation, we will focus on Yoga Nidra, what Yoga Nidra is about, and also meditation. And then Kelly will take you through her journey at the end as well. So very excited about our conversation today. And Kelly, if you could tell the audience about your journey into stepping into your soul purpose, that would be awesome.
Sure. So I first discovered yoga when I was young, when I was like 16. I used it as cross training for my sports because I was an athlete. And it wasn't until I was a little bit older and, I had always loved yoga. I had heard about meditation. I had done a little bit of meditation when I was a primary caregiver for my mom during her battle with breast cancer. But I had never really necessarily pursued it. And so when I graduated university, I did a yoga teacher training, and that opened my eyes even more to this idea of meditation, of turning inward, of connecting with yourself. And I went and checked some of the boxes and worked a quote real job for several years. But I always felt this love for turning inward, for helping people connect with who they really are, with finding that joy within themselves through both mindful movement and yoga, but through meditation as well. And so I ended up doing a kind of big move with my husband for his work. And when I did that, I had to leave, my job, my friends, everything. And that's when I finally decided that I felt ready that the universe kind of gave me this opportunity to do something different, to start stepping into what felt like more purposeful work for me, which was starting Yoga for You, and, opening a yoga studio and, eventually starting a podcast and all of these things. But it wasn't until the universe kind of handed me this clean slate in a way that I felt like, this is my opportunity to really try to do something that feels kind of more purposeful for me and to give it a shot. And so since then I've just been just continuing on and letting things ebb and flow as life ebbs and flows. But yeah.
That's fantastic. I love it. And, thinking about, because you mentioned yoga and meditation, and one aspect of yoga that you're focusing on is Yoga Nidra, which I know not a lot of people know about Yoga Nidra. I've discovered it myself and absolutely love it, which is part of the reason I wanted it for this event. So how did you discover Yoga Nidra actually?
I discovered it in one of my yoga teacher trainings. So I did a 200-hour, and then a few years later, I did a 300-hour. And in that second training, a part of the curriculum was learning not necessarily how to teach Yoga Nidra, but I was introduced to the practice. And it's funny because at first I really struggled to stay awake. And so every time we would do a Yoga Nidra practice during this training, I was always falling asleep. And, and I didn't feel like I really understood it until I started to learn more about it and to understand what it was. And then that really intrigued me at this idea of having a practice that really helps you to kind of peel back the layers and to connect with like your soul space or your authentic self. And then I was really intrigued. And then I started to dive even deeper and, begin not only practicing it for myself and staying awake, but then learning how to take that practice and to share it with others. That was kind of my first taste, but I was definitely one of those people that fell asleep a lot at the beginning, which is common.
I can totally relate to it, but it's so beautiful because
Yeah.
it's such a deep restorative sleeps, right? So
Yes, it really is. It just relaxes your body so much. And, it's funny because now I get the question all the time where people say, what if I do, if I fell asleep, or, oh, I fell asleep during practice, do I still get the benefit, or what does that mean? And I always tell people, like, it just means that you're tired and you need rest. Like, our bodies will always prioritize what we need, like our basic needs, before, a conscious journey to the true self. And so now I know in hindsight, that was my body signaling to me that we need to prioritize more rest. But it does really kind of get you to that relaxed state. So then often you do fall asleep because you need the rest and the relaxation.
exactly. And so for those in the audience that don't know about Yoga Nidra, can you kind of talk a little bit about what it is exactly?
Mhm. So, Yoga Nidra, the term translates to yogic sleep. And the idea is that we're trying to put the physical body to sleep. So, it'll feel like a long guided meditation. A Yoga Nidra practice is usually anywhere from 40 to 60 or even 75 minutes. But we're trying to put the physical body to sleep so that we can do some work on some of the deeper layers. So, Yoga Nidra is described as a conscious journey through the koshas. And this is all just kind of like, yoga speak. But the koshas, it means sheath or layer. And it's this idea that we're kind of like an onion or like those little nesting dolls, that we have like a physical body, but then we go deeper and there's like an energetic body. And then even deeper, there's like your mental body. And you go through these 5 koshas, and in the center of these layers is this thing called Atman, which is like the soul or the true self or the most authentic self. And so Yoga Nidra is where someone takes you through a conscious journey through those different layers, and hopefully bringing you face to face with your true self, where you plant a positive seed of intention or sankalpa, that then you can then really plant in that kind of most authentic self space.
Beautiful. And in that way, what I love about it is it brings inner peace. For me, definitely when I do it. So how, and to explain to the audience is how can it bring to them inner peace? How can it bring to them a way to really attune with their body, and kind of explain to it a little bit, if that makes sense.
Mhm. Yeah, well, something that I love about Yoga Nidra is that it's so soothing for the physical body. And I think that often when you're trying to go a little bit deeper or find more of that internal peace or tranquility, that you have to quiet the body first. Because if our body is kind of firing on all cylinders, we have that fight or flight mechanism going, it's really hard to find peace internally on a deeper level when we haven't kind of calmed down and quieted the senses on a physical level. And so something that I really love about the practice is how soothing it is for the physical body, and how it can really quiet some of those, what can feel like alarm bells at times, and like that constant overstimulation. It really works with this idea of pratyahara, which is withdrawal of the senses. So shutting down the senses, turning inward, quieting the physical body. And to me, I think that's such an essential piece that shouldn't be skipped over when you're looking towards kind of finding that inner stillness, is you have to start with the outer stillness.
Exactly. And has it been for me, I was I was reading about how Yoga Nidra, for example, an hour session is equivalent of 5 hours of sleep, I believe. I don't know if you want to elaborate on that.
Yeah, so you'll hear that statistic. Often they'll say, the one that I see a lot is like a 45-minute Yoga Nidra is equivalent to 3 hours of sleep at night.
Mhm.
And it's kind of like a yes and situation. And the idea behind that is, not getting like too thick into the weeds of it. But what's happening during Yoga Nidra is we are trying to put the physical body to sleep. So if we were to kind of monitor your brain waves, it would look like you were sleeping, even though your mind is still conscious and you can hear what the facilitator is saying. So the way that they get that ratio is it kind of plays with how many minutes your body is in that deep restful state, which if you kind of study, which I imagine a lot of people haven't. This is something like when I do yoga nidra teacher training, we have this whole, several hour lecture on like the anatomy of sleep. So this is the very kind of like Spark Notes version of it, but we don't spend a lot of time in deep sleep at night. Less than half of our sleep, if we're sleeping for 8 hours at night, less than half of that is in like deep, deep sleep.
Mhm.
And so it's kind of playing with the ratio. So maybe in an hour yoga nidra, your body might be in that more deep sleep state for 20 minutes or even 30 minutes, which is a huge chunk of what you would get at night. So it's kind of playing on the ratio of how many minutes like your body is getting that really deep restful sleep compared to what you get on average, like in a regular night of sleep. Because obviously yoga nidra is shorter, but it's also designed to kind of get you to that deeper place faster, as opposed to our sleep at night. And both are valid and important. We kind of go from light sleep and then, down to deep sleep and REM and back up. We have these sleep cycles. And one sleep cycle is, anywhere 90 minutes to 2 hours. But each stage of sleep has its own purpose. But when you practice yoga nidra, you get to the deeper stuff faster. So it just plays on the ratio a little bit.
Definitely. And what I love about it too is that, sometimes people start a practice and just do it once or twice, but this is one where I experienced myself that over time, it builds up and you see the benefits even at a deeper level as you keep going with the practice. I used to do it twice a week. I don't know if you recommend to do it daily or what you've seen in terms of, how it's been benefiting people, but also from a health perspective as well. And I don't know if you can expand a little bit on the, what are the health benefits beyond the sleep, which is very restorative. But I know some people who actually heal some ailments thanks to yoga nidra. And I don't know if this is something you've seen in your practice as well.
So what the studies tell us, and I'm always very cautious to share any claims that are outside of what's been backed up through science. But what the studies tell us is any kind of a sort of introverting practice or like an intentional mindfulness practice, whether it be yoga nidra, whether it be listening to a guided meditation, that there's a few big benefits that we know come from this. One is a lot is actually happening in the brain on a neurological level. So there's two key players here. One's going to be the amygdala, which is like the pain, worry, fear center of the brain. It's the part of the brain that kicks off the fight or flight mechanism. So that tends to be very active in our everyday lives. It wasn't designed, like we were only designed to be in fight or flight for maybe 90 seconds at a time and then to go back to baseline. But now that our world is so over, stimulating, and we can't really decipher between like a stressful thing we see on TV or an uncomfortable conversation we have someone or an actual threat, like we're hiking and then a bear crosses the path. So what happens is with yoga nidra, with meditation, is that the amygdala actually begins to quiet down. And over time, it can begin to shrink or atrophy, meaning you're having smaller physiological anxiety responses, which is huge if you're someone who is suffering from anxiety or gets kind of those strong fight or flight responses in everyday life. Where at the same time, the prefrontal cortex, which is kind of the part of the brain right behind your forehead that has to do with like emotion regulation, focus, and concentration, that actually becomes bigger and stronger and denser. And so we're rewiring our brain to have these smaller anxiety, pain, and fear responses, but to have a greater capacity to regulate our emotions and focus and concentrate. And then on a physical level, we know that these practices are really great. Like if you have high blood pressure, it can increase your circulation. And it's also really good. Our bodies, actually our tissues, do the regenerative work that it needs in sleep, rest, and relaxation.
Mhm.
So we think about the immune system. People say like, oh, it gives me like an immunity boost. It's actually not boosting your immune system, but if you think of your immune system as like an army and it's fighting all day long, when you rest and when you go to sleep at night, that's where then you're kind of like replenishing your army or bringing more soldiers in. And you can only do that in rest, relaxation, and sleep. That's why when you're sick, your doctor says, go home, rest, relax, drink fluids. And so you are getting those same kind of like body restoration, like replenishment that you would get during regular rest and relaxation too, when you do these kind of intentional restful practices like yoga nidra and meditation.
Beautiful. No, I absolutely love it. And I've experienced it myself, but also the other part I've experienced personally. So for example, I travel a lot. So, doing those long flights, 10, 11, 12 hours, definitely doing yoga nidra has been great in terms of recovering faster from the long flights and the jet lag actually. But also from a work perspective, it's really helped me, I feel, get more present, be more in the silence and into those moments where I get more clarity, and I'm able to make decisions faster, and use my intuition more as well. So that's definitely something that I've experienced myself. I don't know if this is also something I'm sure that your students have experienced. I don't know if you want to touch on that as well.
Yeah, I think that intuition piece is a big one, because especially with yoga nidra, what you're doing is you're taking that conscious journey through the different layers, but you're trying to connect with the true self. And so it's like you're consciously going to that true self space. You're getting to know that space a little bit better. And I think when you do that in sort of the safe space or bubble of like a yoga nidra practice, or maybe a true self meditation, that it then becomes easier to access in everyday life too. It's like you're practicing, touching that space and trusting that space, connecting to that space. And if you can do it in that little practice bubble, it then becomes easier to take it into your everyday life as well. So that's something that I've experienced that I hear a lot from my students, is that whether it feels like intuition or it feels like, they're just more connected to like their authentic selves or their soul space, that's something with regular practice they really see increasing, and they feel kind of more at peace with that part of themselves.
Definitely. And one thing also that I've noticed as well is your vibration changes as well, where there's just this calmness that is emanating from you. And, I've had people ask me, what do you do? You're so calm, and it's noticeable. And then, oh, well, I've done yoga nidra, maybe you should try. And so it's definitely something that people can notice as well, as you're getting to that calm that is then emanating from you.
Yeah, I think that's such a great point, because when people say, oh, like, how my husband would really benefit from meditation. How do I get my husband to do it? Or how do I get my kids to meditate? Or there's this person at work that could totally benefit from meditation or yoga nidra. How do I get them to try it? They're resistant. And I always say, like, just you doing it for yourself and them seeing like the improvement, but also like the calm and the happiness, like just let how you're living your life and the benefits that these practices are personally giving you, like let that speak for itself. And then if they see that as something that they also want, then they'll ask about it. And then you won't have that resistance, but like just let how it benefits you speak for itself. And then the people who are ready for that or who are desiring that, like then they'll be open to it.
Exactly. No, well said. And so how can you also, I guess another question I have is, we know about meditation, it's definitely being promoted more and more, even through businesses offering meditation more and more to their employees. I haven't seen yoga nidra yet being offered as much, and I'm sure it's going to, because of the benefits of it. But how can you maybe combine? So if someone is already doing meditation, which I would love for you to touch on a little bit about meditation, what it is for those who don't know so much about it, but also how can it be incorporated with the yoga nidra? Is it either or both and just kind of talk a little bit more meditation as well.
Sure. So meditation is just single pointed concentration. So I describe it as like, if your mind is a light bulb, when you're walking around all day long, the light is on, it's, shining all directions. When we meditate, we're trying to turn that light bulb into a laser pointer. And so you're taking all of that mental power, you're concentrating it and focusing it on like one thing. Meditation is something that can be done in just a few minutes. Like studies tell us even 8 to 10 minutes a day is enough, which is so great. It's beautiful. You can meditate on anything. Like that point of concentration can be anything. Where Yoga Nidra, I think, is such a nice complement to that. So if you're someone who's already meditating, I think giving Yoga Nidra a try, one, because it's going to be longer in duration. So it's going to be probably on the short end, 30 minutes, but more likely closer to kind of that 45 or 60-minute mark. And so doing kind of that intentional rest introspection time, but on a larger scale through Yoga Nidra. Also, I think it's really fantastic how the two, they're kind of like cousins, but not twins. And so if we look at it from a yoga perspective, there's the 8-limb path to yoga, which I'm sure some of your listeners are familiar with. It comes from Patanjali. And it's this idea that like yoga itself broadly is made up of 8 different things, which is like the way we interact with ourselves, the way we interact with others, concentration, meditation, withdrawal of the senses, union kind of like with the self. There's these different elements to the yoga umbrella, and meditation is its own separate one. And then withdrawal of the senses or pratyahara is its own separate one. So they're technically different practices that kind of fall under this very broad sort of like yoga umbrella. And both are equally important, but different. And so I think that if you're doing one, that incorporating the other is a really great, beautiful benefit because they're similar, but also different. And they kind of hold their own unique space within that, that umbrella of like self-discovery and self-care and introspective practices.
Fantastic. I love it. And, I practice both. And like you said, it's, I think there's different ways to incorporate it, whether it's meditating every day and then maybe doing Yoga Nidra 3 times a week, for example, or vice versa. But yeah, I absolutely love it. And I was just thinking as well, so Yoga Nidra, so I've experienced Yoga Nidra in 2 ways, live, in person, and also online. And I think for me, both worked really well. But I don't know if people are starting now, would you recommend for them to start online or try to find a practice somewhere in the area? Or what are your views on that for those people, in the audience who may be wondering how to get started with a practice?
I think whatever feels the best to you and you feel like you're most likely to stick to, that's the way to go. So if you're a person who really enjoys holding space with others and doing like a practice in a space in like a class setting, look for one local. And of course, there's pros and cons to everything. We know this now, like in a post-COVID world, that there's pros to doing virtual or audio only versus in person and, vice versa. But I think that particularly Yoga Nidra and meditation are 2 practices that lend themselves really well to being just as effective, like audio only. So whether that's listening to a podcast or a recording or finding one on YouTube or whatever it is, that can be just as effective because you only need to be able to hear it. And so you can find that and hit play. But I think that if that's not your preferred modality or your preferred way to kind of absorb that type of a practice, look for a class locally and give that a try. Also know that every teacher is going to do it a little bit differently. So try some different things until you kind of find like your sweet spot where it feels really good to you. And it's something that you start to look forward to. And it's this nice little like benefit add to your life, as opposed to feeling like another thing that you need to check off the list.
Definitely. Oh, I love that. Yeah. And it's, whatever works for you. And, some people may do it in the morning, some at night. I personally prefer it at night because then my sleep gets even deeper.
Yes.
Meditation in the morning. So it's also, like you said, kind of have to look at what works for you, right?
And find I always think of it as like your personal formula, because the more seamlessly that it can weave into your life and what you're already doing, the more likely you are to stick with it. And that's the important part is doing the practice. And so setting yourself up for success by choosing the path of least resistance is fine. And I think we sometimes get swept up in these ideas of like, oh, you're supposed to meditate at night. You're supposed to do Yoga Nidra in the evening, or you need to meditate for this many minutes, or it needs to be on this particular thing. And a lot of those are just kind of people's opinions. and they're not like rooted in any fact. And so it can look the way that you need it to be, or that resonates deeply with you. And as long as you're doing it, that's all that matters.
Exactly. I love it. And so when it comes to going back to meditation, I know that you will be taking our audience through a journey, and to get a taste as well of the work that you're providing. So before we get started on that, is there anything else that you would like to add in regards to Yoga Nidra, meditation, or anything else for the audience?
Not really. I think just giving it a try, like just, having an open mind, giving it a try, even if you've tried it once before, and you didn't care for it, a different teacher may deliver it completely differently, or trying a different style or something like that. There's so many different varieties out there that I think just giving it a try with an open mind and experiencing it first before deciding if it's for you or not is always some of my, I guess, most common advice, because it really does make a difference, I think.
Definitely. All right. And so next, so the meditation that you'll be taking the audience through, can you just let us know a little bit about what it is? And yeah.
Yeah, so we're going to be doing a guided meditation to help connect with our soul space. So we're going to work on kind of quieting the senses, quieting the mind, and then turning inward and really working on connecting with that like deep, authentic self that's within, and then maybe seeing if we get any guidance while we're there.
Perfect. Love it. All right.
All right. All right. So go ahead, and wherever you're at, you can get comfortable. You can create a long spine, maybe soften the shoulders. You can close the eyes if that feels good to you. Taking a moment just to make any last little adjustments that you need. And then we'll begin by taking a few deep breaths. So maybe even just inhaling through the nose and then open mouth exhale, just sighing it out. Doing this 2 more times. And one more last big one. Good. And then just allowing your breath to fall into this natural rhythm. So completely effortless, smooth, not forcing or changing in any way. But just notice the breath as it moves effortlessly in and out of your body. Maybe you notice as you inhale, the breath moves in through the nose, across the sinuses, down the throat to the lungs. And then follow that breath as it reverses its pathway, going the opposite direction, leaving the lungs, moving up the throat, across the sinuses, and out the nose. Just following that breath as it enters your body and leaves your body. And with every breath cycle, let the external world begin to just dissolve away. We start turning inward, releasing whatever's happening around us right now, quieting our senses, letting them rest and take a break. And just beginning to journey inward. So moving past your physical body, and moving in closer and closer to your soul space, wherever that is for you. There's no wrong answer, but maybe visualizing where within you the soul resides. Getting closer and closer still. And then visualizing your soul. What does it look like? What does it feel like? How does it feel to be here with your soul right now? And just taking a few quiet moments and just hold this space, existing with your soul right now. And now ask for any guidance, or you can ask your soul a question, or maybe you just sit and listen, connecting with this space, seeing if there's anything that it has to say to you. It might come easily or maybe not, and that's all okay. But just opening yourself up to any guidance your soul may have for you right now. Just listening. Taking a few final moments here with this space, listening, coexisting. And then thanking your soul for anything that it had to share with you. Sending it a little bit of love. And slowly begin to journey back out towards your physical body as you just deepen your breath, making that breath a little bit bigger, a little bit fuller. And then wiggling fingers and toes and gently opening the eyes, returning to the here and the now. And that is our guided meditation. I'm curious, what was that like? How was that for you?
It was beautiful. It was actually quite deep.
Mm.
Received a lot of messages.
Oh, and that's amazing.
I don't know how long it was, maybe 10 minutes, but it felt like it was
Yeah.
for an hour.
Oh, beautiful. I
Yes,
love that.
I love your voice is absolutely just takes you so deep. I love it.
Oh,
Beautiful.
thank you.
But it was
Good. Well,
all
I'm happy to hear that.
yes, for me it was all about opening the heart. which I do a lot of work
Oh,
by opening my heart, but it was, keep opening your heart even more, because so many, the word that came up was power, but not power in a sense of being, a misuse of power, but just, gift to come online. As the more I open my heart, the more things will come up. So yes, thank you. It was
wow.
absolutely beautiful process. And what is great is with a recording, we'll be able to do it again and again and again. And I encourage the
Mhm.
audience with, whatever you've experienced today as well, to keep doing it, because you keep getting different messages every time, right?
Yes. And I think you can kind of connect, kind of like building a relationship with anyone. Like the more that you connect with that true self, that soul space, like the more time you spend with them, the better you get to know them. And so you can kind of connect a little bit deeper, a little bit faster every time.
Exactly. Because your soul knows so much more than we do. So
Yeah.
it's always guiding us, but it's taking that time to connect with it. And going back
Totally.
to what we talked about earlier with Yoga Nidra and meditation, it's like a muscle. And so the more you do it, the more then you can get into those meditations that are 10 minutes and get deeper and deeper and deeper faster as well.
Hmm.
So definitely encourage your audience to, keep doing it, like you mentioned, and build that.
Absolutely.
So beautiful.
Absolutely.
And so with that, I know that you have a gift for the audience as well, if you would like to touch on that really quickly.
Yeah. So I think one of the easiest ways to incorporate meditation is to incorporate it with your sleep. So I have 3 guided meditations designed to help you sleep better at night. So you can listen to them, fall asleep to them, or listen to them right before to kind of help transition you into sleep. Since Yoga Nidra also helps kind of with that sleep process, so that we can all start sleeping a little bit better at night. So you'll be able to kind of get an instant download for those audios, and then you can listen to them. You and I can be sleeping together at night and get the rest that we need, because sleep is the foundation for everything good.
It is. It really is. Well,
Uh,
thank you so much for your generosity with that. And I'm sure the audience
Thank you.
really appreciate. And then if the audience would like to know, get to work with you or know more about what you do, I know that you have a podcast. I don't know if you want to touch on it,
Mhm.
and as well, how else we can get in touch with you as well.
Yeah, so I have a podcast called Mindful in Minutes. So it's very similar to what we just did together a few minutes ago. There are guided meditations that are all 20 minutes or less. There's a lot of soul work on there, intuition work on there. And I've been doing it for 5.5 years. So there's over 350 to choose from. You can just scroll and pick and hit play. So I'd love to see you over there. Otherwise, my website, yogaforyouonline.com, or I'm over on Instagram, Yoga For You Online. And then if there's any parents out there, I actually have a book coming out in a couple of weeks
Oh,
around how to incorporate meditation into your household. So it's called Meditation for the Modern Family. And it gives you lots of really simple ways to start integrating mindfulness into your home, from the prenatal stage all the way through adult children. So if there's any parents listening, I would love to invite you to grab a copy of that book. I'm really proud of it. And yeah, lots of good, useful stuff in there, I think. I'm biased though, because I wrote
no,
it.
that's amazing. And is the book out yet, or is it?
So it comes out on September 1st, but September 5th, sorry, but you can pre-order it. And then it's available like on Kindle, on Audible, hard copy, all of that. So if you're a book listener like I am, you can pre-order that. And then on September 5th, it'll be like this little gift that appears to you when it
Oh,
gets
that's
delivered one of
fantastic.
those ways.
Well, congratulations on that. This is
Thank
amazing.
you. Thank
That's
you so
great.
much.
And for the podcast, they just go on iTunes, Spotify, basically. Yep.
Anywhere. Yep. Anywhere. All the places you listen to podcasts, you can find it. It's called Mindful in Minutes.
All right.